yes. Her father played at Florida State for back in the 50s, and her father is went into the Florida State Hall of Fame. So let's welcome in Priscilla Proctor.
And her dad.
Hello.
Her dad too.
And
yeah,
my dad, Dr. William Proctor. This is him.
Thank you.
Hi, doctor. How you doing? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. So thanks so much. So just talk about what it's like to be an alumnus of Florida State.
Oh, I love it. I love everything. I grew up going to almost all the games, many of the games. I was born in Tallahassee. My dad was coaching alongside Bobby Bowden under Bill Peterson at the time of mine and my brother's births. So he was working on his master's and doctorate at that time. So after he moved on from Tallahassee, and my mom and all of us, we still grew up going to the games a lot, and we grew up major FSU fans. My dad, when we were little, had these little Seminole bobbleheads that were on either side of the TV. And if we lost a game, those heads were turned around until FSU won.
Oh, wow.
That was his tradition. So we grew up big FSU fans, but to be an alum of the school, my uncle's an alum, my aunt is an alum, my mother, my daughter, my cousin, my son is going there, all of us, almost all of us. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So talk about the Florida State team this year. We all know what happened when Jordan Travis went down against North Alabama. So just talk about what have you thought of the Florida State team this year?
Oh, I think they're spectacular. I absolutely love watching them play. Watching Jordan play. I love that he can run the ball the way he does as a quarterback. The defense is just beyond spectacular. Everything that Norvell has done with this team in the last 3 years has just been phenomenal. To go from where we were to where we are now, undefeated, is just, it's like a dream for us to be back. It feels like we're back in the Bobby era somewhat, So I'm disappointed that this happened to Travis, but I think we have it. I think we're going to do well. I think this is a scrappy team. I think that they love one another deeply. I think they work together well. And I think that there's a really good chance we're going to pull out a win tonight. So,
yeah. Chris, you have a question for Priscilla?
Yeah. Hi, Priscilla. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Hey,
This is an honor to talk to you and your father because I've been a Florida State fan since I was 9 years old. I don't have the grades for it. I wish I had grades to go down to Tallahassee. But my brothers and I grew up watching college football, and one brother likes Miami for some apparent reason, and the other one likes Florida. For, I guess they got it. My mom had something wrong with him at birth or something. I don't know why. But sorry, Mom. But me being a Florida State fan, I always got picked on in my house because we were always the I felt like we were like the third child in the whole triangle of Florida football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we always got picked on and all that stuff. But it's pretty cool that your father, was part of the days when they were building the program.
Yes.
And back in the 50s when people didn't realize that Florida State played Villanova. Villanova was a Division I school before they go back to the CAA right now where they are right now. And I think it's pretty cool hearing all these different, your father has cool stories about the 50s, and he played with Lee Corso and some guy named Bobby, Burt Reynolds, that was pretty
Buddy
cool.
Reynolds,
Buddy Reynolds. Yeah. We played Smoking in the Band in the beginning of the show because it's always cool to hear that. But ask your dad, what was it like having those two as a teammate? Because I think it's cool to hear Lee Corso still doing College Game Day, and he's always a Florida State fan from no matter what, and also with Burt Reynolds in the same backfield.
Okay. They want to know what it was like having Buddy Reynolds and Lee Corso as teammates back in the day.
Oh, that was quite an experience. They were obviously two very different type of people. Buddy was on his way to an acting career, and Lee was a very talented quarterback and running back, and he was a smart young man. So I enjoyed both of them, thought a lot of them, and was fortunate to be able to play with him.
That's cool. That's awesome. And what was it like coaching also as well? You were with Bobby Bowden when Bobby was a assistant coach before he left to go to Sanford, and then he went to some team called West Virginia, and then he came back to Florida State.
What was it like coaching with Bobby under Bill Peterson before he went on to West Virginia? What was it like coaching with Bobby?
Bobby and I became not only coaching friends, but very good personal friends. He and Ann traveled with my wife and me down to the Caribbean when we beat, I guess the big game that year was the Florida game. And that's when the boosters sent the coaching staff that gave us a choice. We could take the money or we could take the trip. Bobby and I got outvoted because we were the two poorest ones on the staff. We wanted the money, but we had the trip anyway. So we went, and we had a good time. But I enjoyed both of them. I considered both of them friends. Bill Peterson, got a lot of high regard for Bill. He did a good job for FSU at the time he was there. And of course, Coach Bowden's career speaks for itself. It can hardly be improved upon, and I doubt that it ever will be.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It's awesome that you got a chance to meet both gentlemen and all that stuff. And what do you think about this year's team? You know, does it anything similar to what you grew, when you were playing? Anything similar? I know football is different this time of year, 2023, than to 1950. But is there anything similar that you say, hey, these guys are just like what I played with?
What do you think about this year's team? Is there any similarities between this year's team and during the time that you coached your players?
It's a different, in some ways, it's a different game. I don't know that I'm qualified now to draw comparisons between the different styles.
Right.
The thing that I think went well with us is when Coach Peterson went out to California and came back and decided we would be a passing team. We weren't going to get the great running backs, but we got some better ones than people thought we could recruit. But the passing game was Coach Peterson's great contribution, I think, to FSU football at that time. Now, Coach Novell, it seems to me he's got a real good handle on what he's doing. I like to watch what changes he makes at halftime. I think that's one of his real strengths, the gentleman that's there now. It seems to me he can, at halftime, he can make adjustments that have been very productive.
Nice. That's cool. Matt, you got a question for Priscilla or Coach Bill or Professor Dr. Bill?
Yeah. So just talk about and either one of you, either one or both you can answer this. Just talk about the adversities that this year's Florida State's team has had to overcome, and how that will benefit them in the championship game.
What adversities do you think this Florida State team has had to overcome, and how will that benefit them in the future? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
What adversities do you think our current Florida State team has had to overcome, and how will that benefit them in the future?
Depends. Hard to say. The big shocker was the Boston College game, and they've managed to pull that one out, and I think that was a great overcoming. This now with the loss of the number one quarterback, I think the team is pulling itself together. They're supporting whoever the quarterback is going to be. I think he did a great job against Florida. And I think the team came back from a deficit, and obviously had a lot of unity, and were able to overcome adversity.
Okay. Priscilla, question for you.
Yes.
Growing up as a young lady a lot of people back in the 50s and 60s, a lot of girls didn't really watch a lot of football. I know my mom watched a lot of baseball, and she knew Brooks Robinson and all that stuff here in Baltimore. I know I'm in Charlotte right now. But for you, who was your favorite players growing up watching Florida State? Because that was basically your pro team, pretty much.
Well, in the 70s, the joke was that I knew every single name in the roster. They would hand out magazines when we would go. And of course, I had crushes on so many of them in there. And the names that stuck out to me were Dave Capellan.
Okay.
I had the big crush on him. But I remember I had a big
we're putting you on the spot right now. Yeah. Go ahead.
Jimmy Jordan, Monk Bonasorte. Gosh, there were so many. I knew all of the names at that time, and I'm not sure, I knew as much about what was going on then as, say, an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old as I do now. Yeah. But that fervor, that Seminole blood, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like being a Seminole fan. There's just not. I mean, you sit out there and you watch the Chief Osceola come out with the spear. It's unprecedented. You can't compare any other team's entrance to that, at least in my opinion. So growing up around that, going to Florida State and being able to go to the same school where my parents met, where my aunt was a marching chief, my mother was in the Flying High Circus, my dad was a player on the football team, my uncle was a player on the football team, my daughter just graduated with a degree in electrical engineering last December. It just runs in our blood. So, being an alumna, I'm a member of Delta Zeta sorority. I advise several roles within that sorority, so I stay active with them that way. I just love FSU, everything about it. Yeah. I went to 2 games this year in person, the Miami game and the Duke game, both very good games, both very good games. And like Dad, I often refer to them as the cardiac kids. It's just we'll start watching together and Dad's like, Dad, gummit. And I'm like, Dad, give it time. They're going to come back. They will pull this together in the second half. Just watch. I'm telling you now. And they do. And we all leave like breathless and worn out until the next day. But they won. I think if nothing else, this team is they're scrappy. They're a scrappy bunch. And they love one another. And they support one another. And they find a way every time to win. And that's
Wait, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Besides going to see the football game done, did you go watch like the baseball team or any other Florida State sports teams while you were there?
We went to some of the baseball games. Me and my girlfriend was dating a baseball player at the time, and we went to my sorority sister back when they had the little tomahawk character that would walk around the basketball court was actually Tommy Hawk is what they called him. She was Tommy Hawk. So we went to some of those as well. The spirit of FSU, the beautiful campus, there's nothing. It's incomparable. There's nothing to compare it to. There really isn't. And if I could go back for 1 month, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd like to go back and sit on the front porch of Delta Zeta and talk to Miss Ellie, the house mother. She's just adorable. It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot with taking out a lot of the things that were there when I was there and putting in College Town and all that kind of stuff. But it's also kept a lot of the same things that make it Florida State. So even at night, riding downtown and visiting, going past the stadium and seeing just how huge it is and knowing what it's going to be like the next night for a game. We used to go down every single game and we'd go to the downtown get downs. I don't think they have them anymore. And it's just like that party you're going to have before it's time for the game to start. When Dad was athletic director, he was interim athletic director in the season of 2007. TK Weatherall was a good friend of his. He coached TK back in the day. And that was a lot of fun too, to be able to go up and sit in the AD box for that season. We really were grateful for that experience. So I was hoping that y'all might ask Dad for a really good story he could tell you during his coaching days or even playing days.
Yeah. We got time. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have one story, Daddy, that stands out that's kind of humorous or funny or cute to tell them about back when you were coaching?
Yeah. One that sticks in my mind is in my senior year. we beat a North Carolina State on an opening, but then we had a tough road to hoe. It was the first year that we scheduled 5 outstanding teams, and we qualified to be in a certain category within the coaching and the ranks. So we came to practice after losing 3 in a row, and Coach Nugent put us on a school bus and headed out toward the woods. And we got to wondering what was going on. And it dawned, somebody said, he's going to take us out 50 miles and make us run back. Rumors flying. But we got out to an old Air Force base, and we went into a old, I guess what had been at one time a service area. And he had a band there, and he had cooks there, and we had a great get-win party. And from that point on, we won 4 of the last 5. So nice. It wasn't. So you never know what's going on with a team at any given time. But if you ask any of the boys that were on the squad at that time, I think they would all remember the impact of that party.
Cool. That's awesome. That's cool stories. It's great to hear. Like I've been doing the show for like a year and a half on Priscilla on here on video, and I've been trying to find old school players because I'm 42 years old. And I want to hear about people back in the day when I was a kid growing up, like in the 80s and all that stuff. And it's also cool to hear about your father back in the 50s when Florida State was just Florida State. It wasn't like, what are they today? They were building the blocks of what Mike Norvell's doing today and all that stuff. And it's great that we get a chance to talk to you and everybody else. And it just makes me understand the college better, that I can say, all right, this is a cool school, and maybe my niece, maybe she gets the grades to go to Florida State. And I told my brother, she's smart. She should go to Florida State. And he goes, why not? Why? Yeah. Because I want her to.
That's a good enough reason.
Yeah.
Yes, always choose Florida State every time.
Yeah. Nobody else. No Miami, no Florida.
Nobody else. Not Miami, not Florida, not Clemson, nobody else. Florida State.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the game tonight. Hopefully the weather here is not raining.
Right?
And
Who knows? There we go.
Tell your dad, thank you very much for taking this time today. Thank you so much for coming on, sir. I appreciate it. I know you have a busy, relax and enjoy the game tonight. And
nice to have a chance to talk to you. For the record, my older brother was on the first FSU football team. I've got their picture. And then I was on the first time we were a major college team.
Nice.
So it's been a family tradition for a long time.
Cool. Nice. That's cool. Maybe did you get a chance to meet the new coach, or has he stopped by and say hello to you?
We haven't had a chance to meet him. I mean, Dad could no longer go to the games. We used to all go. We had front row, second row, 8 seats. My brother, my mom, my dad, my uncle, my aunt, my cousin, and myself. But as time's gone by, we've lost some of the members in our family, and Dad can't really get around that much. So I go when I'm able. But I come over almost every time and watch the game with him. I'll be with him tonight and my mom.
That's cool.
She's sick, so I sit and watch it with them.
Nice. Well, we'll be at the stadium covering it for us for our outlet, and we'll think of you guys. Every time you guys score, and I'll say something to the SID about your dad, and maybe he'll do something for him.
Let's talk about this season on the whole. Florida State. I think this day, my teammate has no story about it. And we came off a hard fought win against the Rock Rivals last week. So, talk about
yeah, so those are undefeated. I mean, amazing, unbelievable accomplishment that they've been able to make. Coach Norvell, ACC Coach of the Year, I think that's very well deserved. There's been a lot of times in this conference where maybe the best team or the best coach does not get that award, and it kind of goes to who do we think wasn't going to be good and was. And so I'm great greatly appreciative and very happy that he got that award. And man, the nose are rolling. I think obviously when you have the adversity of having a third string quarterback play, everybody else has to play better. And the good thing is this team is elite. There's a lot of great talent, as y'all know very well. But once you have some really playmakers, that Keon Coleman has to take it to another level, has to play his best football in potentially this 3-game run. Trey Benson, has had unbelievable spurts of games where he's running for 200 yards, he's rushing for 3 touchdowns. He has to play his best game. But most importantly to me is that defense. The defense has been elite all year, especially in the second half. It's probably the best second half defense in the country. How can you channel that a little bit more to be in the first half and really get those guys going from jump shot?
Yeah, let's talk about the impact that he had on things that Michael Deputy it's been more, so we're talking about what's
Yeah, he's an instant game changer, instant game breaker. When you have a guy like that can truly do everything for you, take the top off of the defense, make the spectacular catches, make a screen go for 90. And then what he does on special teams as well, he's been an instant upgrade. Just a guy that I think is going to make a ton of money in the NFL draft. I've seen him as high as number 4 to the Bears, which would be fantastic. And I think he's a guy that, he deserves that and he does that.
Talk about Florida State's impressive second half adjustments throughout the season.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible. Coach Fuller, defensive coordinator for Florida State, is a mad scientist, right? Like that guy figures it out, he gets it going. And basically what you see is he'll come into a game thinking, okay, this is what I think you're going to do. This is what I see you do. But then when he makes those adjustments, he knows. He really gets those guys to rally. And I think that's very indicative of a great defense, but also a great defense coordinator, because there's the wear and tear that obviously that team is feeling, and then they can't compete in the second half. So I think that's what you're getting from them, and I think we see that continue tomorrow night.
And then also, we're going to talk about Jordan Travis's impact as a team, even though he's injured.
Well, he is a guy. It's interesting for us, man, because when you work for a conference network, it's a little bit more, intimate, because we know these guys. I've seen them for 5 years. I've seen them grow up, within this system and become the guy. I remember, 3 years ago where he's kind of playing, he's not playing, and then when he finally kind of gets the go-ahead, we're just throwing screens, we're dinking and dumping, we're not letting him push the ball down the field. And then you started to see that to the end of the year where you're like, man, just trust this guy, let him go. And, what he's meant to Florida State, the records that he has accumulated, the things that he has been able to do, man, he's the perfect example of a student athlete. He loves that university, and it's, I think, forever cemented as one of the greatest Noles to play.
Yeah, and talk about
obviously, 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league. I know a little bit sporadic play from Tyler Van Dyke, but when he's on, and he's really one of the best in the country. Riley Leonard came into the season as the 5th-ranked quarterback in this upcoming NFL draft. He deals with injury, just really isn't the same for the entire season. And both guys, one because of a coaching change, the other for reasons we don't quite know yet at Miami, feel like they need to make a change, feel like they need to do what's best for them. Obviously, it's sad to see that because then now we lose them as people that cover the ACC, but you wish them well.
And just go ahead and talk about Strogal from his first year as a head coach at Florida State to the present day.
Yeah, well, we probably, the way it started, we didn't know if he'd be here too long. We would, just some of the things that were happening during COVID, and then you look at losing to Jacksonville State. My gosh, it was the lowest of lows, and then he just sprouted, man, and can't believe it. Had the culture that we saw and wanted to build there. And now you look at it after a 10-win season, going undefeated in the regular season, playing in the ACC championship as a number 4 team in the country. This guy's one of the best coaches in the country, and one of the best play callers for sure. And the things that he's been able to So it's been such a pleasure to get to know him, but also to get to see him work and give him time to believe, and that equals great things.
All right.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Go Noles, baby. Let's go.
Just talk about the UCC and
Find it? Yeah, so come here.
Yeah, so I think, the big thing for me that I was saying to Tom, I've seen is, since I've been calling games, there's been awesome quarterback play. Since I've been in the conference, and I kind of feel a similar way, this season.
It's great.
Every year there seems to be a new crop of players that the NFL is going to really want because they're so good. And so I think that's always been the case. And I think, this year in terms of state of the conference, that's been a big part of it, which is, obviously a great thing for the conference. Because typically what happens is good players attract other good players. And then from a team perspective, there was a stretch there where I think a lot of people thought, well, someone other than Clemson needs to step up. Someone other than who is that? And I think a lot of people pointed at, Miami and Florida State as the programs that felt like, hey, once they get back, now the conference we talked about in a different light. And I think that Florida State, certainly answered the call on that this season, and done it through some adversity. But I think that kind of where they've been ranked, obviously, by the committee, speaks to it.
And you can talk about how Florida State has gone undefeated this year. They've had some close games obviously versus the rival Florida, Miami. So how much of this I keep thinking that
Yeah, and even Clemson today. I think that there definitely is an element of being battle tested for sure. Being in a situation where you've been in close games, you've been down in games, and you found a way to win. I think that says a lot about your team's mental toughness. And I think having the exercise, kind of flexing that muscle of having gone through that, I think is important for football teams because you never know what can happen. You have the opening kick run back off, and panic can set in sometimes with football teams. And I think that there definitely has been a no-flinch attitude and mentality that personal and staff have done a good job kind of dealing with because they found themselves in some good spots, and it hasn't always been the same thing in terms of there's a player who has stepped up to make a play, and I think because of that, this is why they're in the position they're in.
SMU, Stanford, Cal joining the conference.
Yeah, I think let's get a few more frequent flyer miles. I think that'll happen for sure. I think the travel home will be a little later. I think it'll make some interesting headaches for the schedule makers, but I think it's obviously in terms of the health of the conference, adding great schools, great institutions, teams that are schools that have good tradition in terms of football and other sports. I do think that I think it's good for the conference, and I think that there is an excitement from a lot of those places. I've actually had a bunch of conversations with people from SMU that are really excited about the opportunity, and like that would be for me a team that I think should come in and have a lot of success in. So it'll be different for sure, but I think an exciting time as everyone experiences change in college football.